In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your very first Integromat scenario, and then we're going to connect Siri to a Google spreadsheet. So let's do it. The first thing you're going to do is, once you set up your account in Integromat, we are going to go to create a new scenario. And once we have this, the first thing we're going to do is just choose which modules we want to connect. And so you've got a very long list here. Today, what we want to do is connect Siri with a Google spreadsheet. So I've got a Google spreadsheet set up, and we'll just call this Hello World, if I can spell. All right. So now that we have our spreadsheet set up, let's hop back over into Integromat. And so the first thing we're going to do is, you can search through here and find what you like. What we're going to use is Google Sheets. And so we'll just type that in. And the one that I use the most is probably add row, add update. There's a lot of different options here. So that, and plus search rows, which can come in handy down the road as you get a little bit more advanced. But for now, all we got to do is just add a row. So the first thing we need to do is actually make a connection, because we don't have anything yet. This is a fresh account. So I'm going to click add, and you can call it my Google connection or Google Sheets or Jake's Sheets, whatever. I'll go ahead and continue. And then what we'll get is a little thing that wants us to connect our Integromat account to Google. So we'll go ahead and do that. Nothing too scary yet. So then we get this. And so you can choose either to map it manually if we had an ID, or they make it nice and easy to just go in here and go to Hello World. And then we're going to choose which sheet it's on, and that's just referring to the little tabs down below. And then we see that we have, we can choose if we have headers or whatever the case may be. We're not going to get super fancy right now. All we want to do is say Hello World. So let's give this a try. I'm just going to click run. And it ran. And anytime we run a scenario, we can see what happens if we click right here. Just going to get rid of that. So our little Hello World thing showed up there. So that's pretty cool. Not super exciting yet, but now is where we can make this more interesting. So this, starting at the very beginning, is not going to do us a whole lot of good. So we want to have something that gives us an input. And so this can come from just about anything. So if I'm just going to delete this one. And now we can choose a different type of module. So again, like, you can just go through tons and tons of different types of tools that could be the trigger to bring information in here and then stick it in your spreadsheet. But I want to do something that's kind of different and kind of fun. So let's do something different. If we go to a webhook, and this might sound scary, but we're going to do a custom webhook right here. And this is going to be our trigger. And all we need to do is, this is going to be our way to get something from Siri over into our Google Sheet. And so I'm just going to click add, and we'll call this, I don't know, text from Siri. So we'll save that. And now we get this URL right here. And from this, we can just copy it to our clipboard, and then we can go from there. Okay, so now that we have our webhook, I'm going to show you how you can use this. Let's just try something out real quick. So I'm going to copy this, and if I paste this, it's going to say there's nothing listening for it. So what we actually need to do is click run. And even though we haven't finished setting it up, now it's starting to listen for us running this. So if I go ahead and hit enter now, we'll see accepted, and it ran over here. That's great. It triggered. So one way that this could be used is just purely as a trigger, even though we're not pulling any information in yet. You could say as the next module, you could have this tie into another system and run a series of events just based on this webhook. But what we want to do is actually get some text from it. So if I click run, a little thing with URLs is you can, and you probably see this a lot, if you see this little question mark, and then you see some other text after that. So what I'm going to do is actually create a variable, and I know this might be looking scary already. It's not that scary. So we just have that webhook, and then with the question mark and any kind of variable that we want to call this, I'm just going to call it text, and then I can say hello world. And right now I'm not going to do anything with the spaces, but if we come in here, now I can see there's my variable and there's hello world. So what I'm going to do now is hop over into Shortcuts. And Shortcuts came out just recently on Mac. It's been out on iOS for a while. So what we're going to try to do is actually create a new scenario here. So if I click plus, you can create a new shortcut. I went ahead and started one. Let's try this. So I've got this new scenario here. And since I want to use Siri with this, the very first thing I'm going to do is just do dictate text. So this will allow me to speak text to Siri and then have it do an action afterwards. So the next action I want to do is a URL. So you can type in URL right here. So if I hop back over here, copy my URL again, or actually, let's go ahead and take this, since we have our structure of our variable. So if I go over here to shortcuts and then type this in here, instead of hello world, at the end right here, what I want to do is take this dictated text and send it over to Integromat. So if I do this insert variable, what I can do is use dictated text from the previous step. So let's give this a try. So if I hit plus or play, here's my text. And then it ran. So if I went back here to Integromat, so if I click on run, it's going to ask me if I want to run some unprocessed bundles, which just means that it actually was listening, and it pulled in what I did from shortcuts. So I'll do process existing so that we don't have to do it again. So if I run this, okay, let's try it actually again. We're going to listen for new. And let's try this. Here is some text. Cool. And you notice that it actually added some %20s in between. It's just URL encoding to allow it to be sent over. So let's see here. That should have run. Okay, there's our old one. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, here is some more text. Cool. So that should have run. You know what I did? I forgot to add the get contents of URL. So this step set up our URL, and I forgot to actually call it. So that's why. This is learning as we go. All right. So the very first time we do this, it's going to ask for privacy, and we'll say, yes, let's go ahead and set this up. We're going to always allow it for this specific one. And remember that accepted that we saw over here. We're getting the same thing over here. Learning as we go. Boom. All right. So now the next step is to add it here. So let's just say this is our list of to-dos. Oh, hello. And whatever. So let's say date created. So we'll add our to-do over here in column A, and then we'll just add a date right there. So the next step here is going to be using our Google Sheets. So you can either click add another module, or you can come down here and click add a row. If you do it this way, you're going to have to like drag this around, and then once you drag it near, it will connect. So what we're going to do is take the output from this one right here and send that over to our spreadsheet. So we're going to select our spreadsheet, hello world, and sheet 1. And now it actually does contain headers, so we'll see the names of our fields here. And what we're going to do is take the text from this first part, and then we're going to use one of these. So Integromat has variables from the different modules in this first little tab. And then we have all these different options to choose from. So we're not going to get into this right now, but you can explore it. So there's some text commands, and what we're going to use is the little calendar for date and time. So if I hit now, this will bring over the date, but it's not going to format it in a way that makes a whole lot of sense to humans. So what we want to do is under this option here, we want to format this date. Oops. So format, and I can just drag that over. And the way this works, if you hover over it, it shows you the format that you need. So the very first one is going to be the actual date. And then after that is going to be the way to format that. And so you can always look these up if you click the little question mark. And then you can kind of search through the Integromat help. So what we want to do is drag over now, and let's do just your standard month, date, and year. So I hit OK, and I'm going to save this, and then hit run. Now the one thing that is kind of annoying with Integromat is that when we're testing these initially, we have to run this multiple times. So there are ways to get around that. But for now, let's just go ahead and do this. We'll do this kind of manually. So run it. Here is some more text. And now it ran it, it accepted it, and it ran here. So here's some more text, and let's see what happened over here. So now we can see this part's not as useful, actually, but we'll see it over here. So we can see here's the text, here's when it was created, and that's kind of cool. So another way we could test this is if we grab, if we come over here and look at our inputs, Actually, let's just see if this works. Even if we're not URL encoding it, it might not. Okay, it went ahead and encoded it for us. So if I run this again, this is just one way that you can kind of keep testing. So we ran it again, we got some more text, and it's going to add another row right there. So if you wanted to add maybe the time, let's say we want the date as a separate field, and we'll do time right here. So another thing you can do is you can copy. So if I do Command A to select all and Command C, and then I'll do Command V, and it pastes it. So it actually pastes it as text. So if you see it like this, it's just got these curly braces, and so that's kind of cool. Another thing you can do is actually type right in here those curly braces, starting with the number of the module. So this is 2, this is 3. So if I wanted text, you can see the 2 right there. I can go 2.text and then just finish those curly braces. And now I've just done that. Obviously, it's easier to do this, but to drag it from over here. But as you get more advanced, there's going to be times when you want to just change out one little thing, but you can actually copy this over into like a text editor, and you can just tweak that right there and say, okay, give me 3. And then when you paste that in, this isn't going to work because there isn't a variable called text in this module, but it does give you some options here. So what we wanted to do was a really long way to say this. We need to grab the formatting that we want for hours and minutes. I don't want to show the date here. I just want the hours and minutes. So instead of these, let's just try hours, minutes, and that same thing. And I accidentally deleted that parentheses, but I can just type that in. So if I run that, we're going to run this. And once we're done testing, I'm not going to have to run that every single time. Right, so now we've got this over on my other screen. And if I trigger it this way, text to sheet.
What's the text?
Remind me to take out the trash.
Okay.
So now I'm going to hop back over here, and we can see that it ran. So I probably didn't need to say remind me. Okay, so now what we can do is just format this the way we want. Time. Cool. So it took the time and stuck that in there. And the other thing we could do is if we wanted to say like put in a due date for like the next day, let me copy this and put this over here. I'm going to put the header in a second, but actually I don't need that. Let's go back to the dates. You can do add hours or add days. So let's try add days, and we're going to do this to now. And then we're just going to do, I think you just do a plus. Nope. So you can do negative, but if you're just adding, we can just do that. So, but now actually I did want that formatting. So let's copy this one again and copy this here. So what I'm going to do is select this part. I wish this part would actually, like when you have it selected, I wish those would change color, but I'm going to Command X to cut that and then replace it in here. So now we've got a nested thing here, but by doing that, we're going to get the formatting the way we want. So let's go back here and we'll call this due date. Okay, so let me just run this, and I'm gonna the reason I keep hitting run here instead of just turning it on, I could totally do that, but I like to see how it actually runs. And as you get more complex scenarios, you're going to want to see, especially if you start adding filters and things like that. So when we run this again, I'm just going to do it this way. So now we can see here's some more text, and then here's the due date, which is a day later. So working with dates is kind of it's kind of a pain sometimes, just because of like learning the different formatting and things like that. But you can always come in here and let's see if we can. So if we go to help, oops. I thought we could just go straight to it. So what you could also do is just Google it. So you could search for Integromat date format. And they have a little cheat sheet. So right here, these tokens for date time formatting, this is how you can get exactly what you want. So if it's like, you know, instead of having it be this kind of format, I'm gonna cough. All right, so let's just say we want this to be in a different format. We could choose, so let's go back here and say like, maybe we want the day of the week like this. So lowercase d's like that. And then if you only use one capital D, it'll just do without the leading 0. So let's try that. We'll do date created as, oops, I copied the wrong thing. We'll just type it. So instead of this, we'll go DDD, and then, so that's Monday, or Friday, the 18th, and maybe we don't want the year. So let's run that again. And let's try it again with Siri. So do my laptop screen and text to sheets.
I don't see sheets in your contacts. Who do you want to send it to?
Oh, come on, Siri. Text to sheets.
I don't see sheets in your contact.
Good grief, Siri. Let's see if we can train Siri.
That's done.
Okay, let's rename this. Text to Google. Text to Google.
What's the text?
Do the dishes.
That's done.
Okay, so that should come through in a second. Perhaps. There we go. Sometimes when we're testing this, it's a little wonky, so you can always stop it and then try running the existing stuff. And then that came through, and so now you can see the new format came through as well. So yeah, that is our little hello world. And I mean, I think that's kind of cool as a first a first time usage. So just to recap, well, first of all, I'm going to save it and then I'll turn it on. So this is a key step, which I sometimes forget to do. You need to turn it on. And so now it's listening. Thank you, checklist. So now it's listening, and I'm just going to say it one more time. So, and then it's always good to give it a name. So text to Google Siri. I like to mention kind of like what's going in. So every time I say Siri, something in my house triggers. um, so yeah, and then another nice thing is that we can come over here to history, and we can see it, see how things ran. So if we want to come through, and maybe something, you're actually using it, and something gives you an error, and you want to come back in here to the history, and you can see exactly what came through, so that maybe there was some weird character that messed it up or whatever the case may be. So that's a way that you can kind of troubleshoot these. Another thing, as you are trying to troubleshoot things, is you can right click on this module and say add an error handler. And so like as you add more steps here, if one of the steps fails, you could have it ignore it. But if the other steps absolutely need that, that's not going to work. Sometimes I'll use this break. And what this does is allows me to have it give it another shot. So like if for some reason the server is running slow and it times out, you could say, try it try it a total of 3 times and give it a minute in between, or give it 5 minutes in between, or whatever the case may be. So you could do that. And if I do that, I'm going to get this little red thing. I need to come over here to my settings and allow storing incomplete sessions. So that's one thing you could do. Another thing you could do is, let's just say we had another step here. So let's just try and think of what we would want to do. I'm just going to clone this, and we'll just add it twice. That's fine. What I wanted to show you is you can add an error handler and just say like, okay, if this one doesn't work, you can ignore it, but you can also add something in between to give you a notification. So what you could do is say add a module, and then, you could connect. So sometimes I'll use like Slack or something. A lot of my automations come from ClickUp. And so I can post a comment on the task that didn't run properly. And so yeah, you've got a lot of options here to like send a Slack message. Let's just send one here. So by right clicking in between these different modules, you can always add a module or extra steps. So I can do that. And then lastly, if for some reason you wanted to kind of have it choose a different path based on maybe what's in there, like maybe it's based on what's in the text. So we could say, if you click here on this, I can say add a filter contains dishes. So here we can say the text, if it contains or starts with or has a bunch of different things here, contains dishes. What the heck? I don't know why I was auto-correcting to dashes. So if it contains dishes, do this. And just to kind of let us see that it did something, we'll just say dishes. Do you see that? It's auto-correcting to dashes. So if it does that, we're going to add it over there. And since we have it here, it's actually going to add it twice, which is maybe not what we want. So let me actually show you how you can move things around. So if you right click and then say unlink, now I can move this over here. And as soon as I move it kind of close to this one, this router, with routers you can add multiple different paths for it to take. So I'm going to reconnect this over here. And if you're like me, I like to auto align to make it look nice again. And we'll just say this one doesn't contain dishes. The other thing you could do is say this is the fallback route. So as long as this one doesn't run, at least this one will. So there's options there. So I don't even have to have a filter on that one. So if I hit run and we'll say do the dishes in our little test. And so now when I come back through here, I can see that this filter, it met the criteria, and so it ran. So now if I come over here, I can see dishes. And it shows us the time and everything. So, not the best example of why you would want to use a router, but it does show you how you can add filters. So the other thing you could do is to prevent errors from happening. Sometimes what I'll do is like, especially when I'm using webhooks, is I can come here and just say text exists. So, and this is just a label for you to understand what's happening. Even if you think that you'll remember, give it a couple weeks and then you'll forget. So at least that's my case. You can also add notes, which is pretty cool. So you can, explain what's happening here and maybe explain what's happening here, whatever. So that's pretty handy. But these are just the least you can do to, as a gift to your future self or to anybody else on your team. Lastly, you can rename these modules. If you right click on it, click rename, and then go from there. So this can be a little bit more helpful, add the reminder. So again, as you get more and more little modules in your scenario, it can get a little bit complex. So it's nice to just say exactly what's happening, even though you do have a little idea over there. So another thing you can do, I keep adding more stuff to this, but I just want to make sure that you have enough to play around with. You can hold down the shift key and then drag and then do your command C, command V. Yes. And you can paste those and, make some crazy big scenarios. So anyway, that is our little intro to Integromat. Hopefully that was useful, and come back for more. I definitely want to do some more videos for beginners, but also I really like doing the advanced ones as well. So let me know what you think, and always you're able to share your ideas if you go to my website and click on submit and vote on ideas. And once you if you scroll down, you can vote on ideas, and then you can also submit your own right there. And so thanks for watching.